Welcome to On the Ground for Palestine and Israel for the week of June 18th, 2022, brought to you by Kumi Now. We're posting a little late this week as I, after 5 years in Palestine and Israel, have moved to the United States. Most of our team is, of course, still in Palestine, so this really only affects the production end of the podcast, and we might be a bit late publishing the podcast each week as we adjust to the new schedule and time zone. We begin our news this week with news of violence in Gaza. IMEMC reports that early Saturday morning, the Israeli military fired missiles at several sites across Gaza, targeting sites believed to belong to armed resistance groups. The missiles were reportedly fired after Israel's Iron Dome defense system intercepted a missile aimed at Ascalon. Israel states it was targeting sites run by the Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, and that it holds Hamas responsible for any escalation of the conflict. This is the first shell fired from Gaza since Israel war on Gaza in the summer of 2021. Also Saturday morning, IMEMC reports that Israeli Navy ships fired live rounds at Palestinian fishing boats in the Gaza Strip. Several fishing boats were targeted near Gaza City and to the north. The attacks caused some property damage as well as a lost day of work for the fishermen. The Saturday morning attacks followed Friday night attacks on boats in Gaza's south and attacks on Tuesday involving gas bombs fired at Palestinian farmers on their land. I believe we reported last week on attacks that injured Gazan farmers on their land near the perimeter wall. And as IMEMC notes, quote, "The attacks are part of constant Israeli violations against the Palestinians, especially the fishermen, farmers, shepherds, and workers in the besieged and impoverished Gaza Strip, and resulted in dozens of casualties, including fatalities, in addition to severe property damage and the confiscation of many boats after abducting the fishermen over the years." Palestine Chronicle reports that Amnesty International is urging Israel to immediately release Ahmed Manasra, who has developed serious mental problems, including schizophrenia, and, according to the Chronicle, suffers from psychotic delusions, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Ahmed is now 20, but he was arrested when he was just 13. According to Amnesty International, he was harshly interrogated after being arrested in 2015. As his health has worsened in jail, he was confined to solitary confinement in early November 2021 and has remained there ever since. The Chronicle notes, quote, "The widespread use of administrative detention without trial goes back decades. Israel's continued occupation of Palestinian land and its persecution and violence against Palestinians have been defined as apartheid by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch." And Jenin remains a steady target of Israeli violence. According to Mondeweiss's record keeping, a total of 66 Palestinians have been killed by Israel so far in 2022. And of the 66 killed, 20 were killed in the Jenin area. 3 of those were killed in a Friday night raid that left 3 men in their 20s dead and injured several others. A large Israeli military convoy raided Jenin early Friday morning. One target included firing dozens of bullets into a vehicle after, the Israeli military claims, they were fired upon from the vehicle. 3 men in their mid-20s were killed, while the 4th was seriously injured. Finally, Haaretz reports that the Israeli army plans to carry out live fire drills near the Palestinian villages that are facing eviction in the Masaferiata area. These will be the first such exercises in over 20 years. While residents have been told they won't need to evacuate, such exercises in the past have seen tanks damage several villages, and the residents will be subjected to hearing the exercises that will last a month, amounting to a form of intimidation. While Israel's High Court of Justice has issued its final decision in the decades-long case, lawyers representing the Palestinians living inside the IDF firing zone state they will submit an appeal for another hearing of the residents' petition. In activism news around the world, we have 2 stories, both from Mondeweiss. First, they report that last week the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church condemned Israel's apartheid system. The measure passed with an 88% majority. It makes it the first unit of that United Methodist denomination to address the issue of apartheid. It is a very well-worded statement, and I encourage you to read the highlights in Mondeweiss or the entire statement. Both links are available in the show notes. Finally, Mondeweiss has an interview with the American Friends Service Committee's Economic Activism Director, Dov Baum. The interview focuses on how the AFSC managed to get General Mills to dump its Israeli settlement factory. The action on the part of General Mills was announced on May 31st and came after a 2-year campaign by the AFSC, which called on a consumer boycott of Pillsbury products until they stopped being manufactured on stolen land. General Mills has been using the plant, originally annexed in the 1967 war, since 2002. In addition to being located on stolen property, it had an environmental impact on Palestinians living nearby. Furthermore, the plant was the target of a 2019 report from Al-Haq and was included on the United Nations 2020 list identifying 112 companies that are violating international law by operating in the West Bank. And that's our news this week. On the Ground for Palestine is produced by Kumi Now, an initiative of Sabeel Jerusalem that is focused on nonviolent solutions to occupation based on international law. This week, Kumi Now focuses on Palestinian refugees in the refugee camps and around the world, as well as those internally displaced in Israel. We have a webinar this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Palestine time with Sandra Curry, the director of the board of Sabeel Jerusalem. Remember, links to the stories mentioned in this video are always available below the video or in the show notes. If you like this weekly roundup, we suggest you subscribe to this podcast through your favorite podcast app, join us at kuminow.com, follow us on social media, and join our weekly Kumi Now newsletter. You can sign up at kuminow.com/register. You can let us know what you think of this news roundup by emailing us at kumi@kuminow.com. We thank you for your role in activism for Palestine and Israel, for only together may we rise up.